You need to be prepared. That's why I explained you the fact that we compare the prices per square foot at the beginning to get a better entry price, which is kind of cheaper, a discounted price, that backs us up in case that the market shifts. Bonjour, hello and welcome back to Deals with Simon. Today, it's time for another episode of the format Knowledge is Power. And today, we're gonna deep dive into the off-plan stage. We're gonna look at the primary segments and all the pros and cons of actually purchasing an off-plan property in Dubai real estate market. With that being said, let's dive into the video and let's enjoy all the action. All right, first things first. In case that you have not seen the video off-plan versus secondary, please go back, please watch the video because it gives you like a full understanding of both the markets. And today we're gonna discover like in a deeper level the off-plan stage. Let's hop into the video and let me give you like a brief understanding of the off-plan segment before I explain you all the pros and some of the cons, and then we sum it up with a clear conclusion in order that you know exactly what to do, when to do, and where to buy. Now, first things first, what is very important to understand, off-plan actually means we are purchasing a property directly from the developer, which is still in the construction phase. That means you cannot walk into the property right now, but you actually get all the renders, all the floor plans, the layouts, all the single little details of the final product and how it will look like nearly identical. And that is actually what we have. And that's why this investment is so interesting, because of the potential return, the potential growth, and all the other advantages, which I'm gonna explain to you over the next couple of minutes. So with that being said, stay tuned and watch every single little detail. Number one, payment plans. And I think this particular part is the most gravitating part, and that gives you leverage. What do I mean by that? Whenever you're purchasing the property directly from the developer gives you the ability to stretch your payments over the whole course of the construction phase. So that means, for example, today we're purchasing the property and the handover of the property is in 4 years, today in 4 years, okay? That means actually that you can stretch all of the payment of the 100% property purchase over those 4 years. And the exact time slots and the exact amount that has to be paid is actually given from the developer. So that is called the payment plan. Now let me give you like a practical example. Let's say the developer is giving you a 70-30 payment plan. That means that 70% of the property value has to be paid during the construction phase and 30% on time of the handover. So at the completion date, the final handover date, then the rest of the payment of 30% is due. And that is just amazing because you never have to get into the situation where you need to put down 100% of your money. You can actually, as I said, stretch it, and you have more flexibility and can even like purchase more property at the same time, because of the variety and of the flexibility of the payment plans. Now keep in mind that on the market sometimes, and specific developer delivered it, we can profit from a so-called post-handover payment plan. Now what does that mean? As the name already says, like post-handover, that means like a specific amount of the whole 100% is only due after the handover, okay? Post-handover. And that gives you even more of a leverage, because now let's stick to the 70-30, 70%, okay? And those 30% of the rest payment, they are not due on the handover, but for example, a 2 years post-handover payment plan means that the rest of the 30% can be even stretched 2 years after the handover. Now what does that mean? When you get the property, when you get the keys in hand, you can actually rent it out directly to a tenant, right? So you generate already immediate income, which is another big advantage of actually having like a ready property. Now then you earn the rental income, and at the same time you pay off the rest of the payment plan for your property, so you're even more in a break-even point, and that gives you like even more leverage. Number two, lower entry prices. Now this is very interesting, because by the fact that we need to trust the developer is giving us the price per square foot. So we are buying the actual purchase price from the developer. That's non-negotiable, okay, in the first place. Now keep in mind that this particular price is oftentimes, and in 99% in the cases, lower than compared to a property which is already ready from the secondary market, okay? So we're buying a bit cheaper, getting a better entry price, a discounted price, because we're trusting the developer. That is advantage number two. Number three, high capital appreciation, ROE, ROI, and actually resale potential. Now this is super interesting, because that is an actual business model. A lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of investors of mine are doing this nowadays. So that means, let's for example stick to the resale potential. We're buying a property from the developer at the launch date, okay? And we're paying off only 40 or 50% sometimes. And after doing that, we're taking a premium, putting the premium on the new price, okay? And together with the OP, with the original purchase price, we're reselling the unit within the off-plan stage and actually getting a profit out of that. That means you put in money, an amount X at the first day, okay? And half of the completion, when you're able to get an NOC, the non-objective certificate from the developer, you can directly resell the property and gain your profits. That is one strategy you can do within the off-plan phase without even waiting until the handover is done. Another strategy could just be to buy the property in the off-plan stage, wait for the handover, and at time of the handover, you resell the property. Because now the potential return is even higher, because the closer we get to the handover, the higher the appreciation gets, because now you can actually see the final product. You can see the property. You can walk in there during the whole snagging process. We can see like what's the quality in reality, like not only in 3D renders, not only in pictures. We now have a physical property we can actually check. So that is another strategy, to wait until the handover and then do the resell. Another strategy is actually to keep the property in your own stock and rent it out after the handover. So that means you're using the ability for the 3-4 years to stretch your payments, and after you get the keys for your property, you're now renting it out. And as I already explained before with the post-handover payment plan, in some cases this is very lucrative because you're owning the property and you're basically not getting deeper into your pocket because you're actually earning cash flow. Number 4, security. Now, this is very attractive because Dubai is extremely safe, not only in terms of the city itself, but in terms of structure and compliances in the real estate industry. Now, we do have the DLD, the Dubai Land Department. We do have the RERA, the Real Estate Regulatory Authority. And by those institutions, they actually control the market and they keep you as the buyer, as the owner of a property, very safe. So whenever you are purchasing a property directly at the developer, you do have an escrow account, that the money actually lands in the escrow account, okay, and not on some private bank accounts or something else. So there's no risk for you in doing an off-plan transaction with the developer. Number 5, 0 additional costs. Compared to a ready property, which is already on the market like for years, with the off-plan stage, we do not have any additional costs. And I think one of the most attractive parts of buying an off-plan is you're saving the commission. What does that mean? The commission I get for actually making a deal happen is paid by the developer, not by you. So there's no 2% commission like it is very usual and standard in the market for you when you buy a property somewhere else. Now, another advantage is that you do not have any refurbishment costs or any renovation costs because you're getting a brand new property, right? And on the third side, you do not have any maintenance and any service charges yet because the property is not handed over yet, and that gives you even more ability to use your money properly. Number 6, and I already need 2 hands now because we have so many advantages. Floor plans. This is super helpful because the developer is in charge to deliver you everything which he can deliver upfront to make your decision very easy in terms of layouts, in terms of floor plans, in terms of actual paper and graphics, how the whole building structure looks like, what are the single floors, how are they structured, what's the layout of the property, what is the actual floor plan with 3 dimensions. That means that we can see the actual size and calculate the actual size of the living room, of the bedroom, of all the specific rooms in order to have enough space later on and in order to decide which layout and which unit is the perfect one. Number 7, showroom apartment of the developer. Now, whereas in the secondary stage with the ready property, we just walk in and do the viewing very easy. In the off-plan stage, most of the developer actually provide us something similar, which is so-called the showroom apartment. That is just an apartment which is fully furnished, mostly in the developer's office, which looks nearly identical of the final product. And you can walk in there, you just check all the little finishings, all the materials they're using, and that gives you a whole lot of security to know exactly what awaits you and how does the final product look like later on. Number 8, you're getting a brand new property. And compared to the secondary market with the ready properties, that means that no one ever before has lived in this particular unit, in this particular property. And that is another main advantage because in terms of energy, in terms of privacy whatsoever, you moving into something completely brand new if you buy it for yourself, for example, or if you buy it for you as an investor. As I already said, no costs, no hustle, no headache, nothing yet, because it is your brand new property and there is no history yet. And that is the 8th and the last of the main advantages of the off-plan. Well, moving on from the main advantages, from all of the pros, and let's compare them to a couple of cons, to a couple of disadvantages, or maybe just let's call it things to have in mind and things to consider before making the decision. Number 1, reliability on the developer's promises. And I think it's now very clear that we do not have the actual property yet. We need to trust the developer, and therefore we need to trust the developer's marketing promises. So whatever they are communicating, whatever they're showing us on paper, whatever they're doing in the showroom apartment, this is what we have to believe in. And by doing so, and by having this kind of belief into the developer, that's the reason why they give us the property a little bit cheaper compared to something which is already ready on the market and giving you all the other advantages. Number 2, a potential time delay in the final handover date. And this is actually the only thing that is like realistic, let's call it that way, and can happen properly because of the enormous growth of the Dubai real estate markets. There are so many projects, so many developers that are actually handing over properties, that are actually launching new projects. And in this scenario, if there are like more projects coming onto the market and there are not enough of the contracting companies and actually companies that are doing the work in the background, that can lead to the fact that you may get your property a couple of weeks, in some cases a couple of months later than expected. Number 3, limited supply and fast decisions required. Now keep in mind, whenever there's a developer with a very solid foundation and a solid reputation already in the market, and they're launching a project which is huge in demand, and people are waiting for this launch for weeks sometimes, okay? Let's say Nakhil, for example, Nakhil with the Palm Jebel Ali, or now with the Dubai Islands. I mean, when they're launching those kinds of products, they are gone within the first 1 or 2 hours. It's unbelievable what's happening with the launches. So that means you actually need to make a decision fast. If we keep an eye on a specific project, and I know exactly because of the reputation of the developer and of the demands, that we need to be fast, and I mean that we need to be fast and make the decision. Now there's something which is called an EOI, an expression of interest, and I'll explain to you later what that means whenever we have a conversation. But generally speaking, this term stands for expression of interest. And this is a piece of paper where we put in an amount given by the developer that we can actually raise the chance of getting the units by delivering an EOI, okay? So this is another point which you have to have in mind. Be fast and be aware of the limited supply. Number 4, and the final con, or the final disadvantage if you want so, price fluctuations. This can happen in every single market at every single time. We never know what's really going on behind the scenes out there, what's really going on in the economy, what's really going on with the minds of the people out there. So that means a market can shift, and a market can go into a downtrend or into an uptrend, right? I think we all agree to that. So that means whenever we are purchasing a property and you're in the payment plan for 3 to 4 years, you need to be aware that your money is kind of locked, okay? Flexible, locked in those 3 to 4 years. That means if the market shifts from an uptrend into a downtrend, you need to be prepared. That's why I explained you the fact that we compare the prices per square foot at the beginning to get a better entry price, which is kind of cheaper, a discounted price, that backs us up in case that the market shifts. And we rarely see a market's downtrends of 15 to 20% within a year. And by the fact that you can potentially resell the property in case that is an urgent, with the resale potential, as I explained, with 40, sometimes 50% needs to be paid for the payment plan, that gives you the ability to back up yourself and stabilize yourself. Now that we have discovered all the pros and all the cons of the off-plan property purchase, it's now time for a final conclusion. But before I come to that final conclusion, let me pinpoint for who I see the off-plan investment or the off-plan property purchase for. On the one side, we have you as the investor. On the other side, we have you as the end user. Starting with you as the investor. Off-plan is perfect for you if you are looking for the highest returns and the highest possible capital appreciation, because you're buying a property where there's nothing yet in an area where there are huge plans for development. That raises the chances of actually getting the best appreciation, okay? Especially when we are comparing RE and RI, return on equity, return on investment. There are some things to consider, and then that can be really, really interesting in case that you are kind of a short-term flipper, as we call them, okay? Flipping the property. At the time, you can do that. The RE, the return on equity, is sometimes even more profitable and higher compared to RI. I will explain you that even in a deeper conversation, so reach out to me in order to understand the comparison here. On the other side, for you as the end user, off-plan is perfect for you in case that you would like to put together your dream home as individual as possible. Why? Because we can now compare multiple developers, multiple areas, multiple property types and layouts and floors, and put all the information together to the table, and then know exactly how the final product will look like. So we have just more choice and more variety, and this regardless of the current market situation and regardless of what's out on the market for sale right now. Coming on to the final conclusion. Those are actually 2 points or 2 questions I would like to give you in order to have clarified before reaching out to me and before we continue with the actual property purchase. Number 1, available liquidity. Please check your finances and know exactly what's the available liquidity right now at this particular point, what you are able to invest over a period of 2, 3, 4 years, and what's your financial plan over the next couple of years in general, because that gives us the leverage and the ability to make a plan either for you as the end user or for you as the investor to build a portfolio or to find your perfect dream home. And let's compare that, for example. Let's compare the payment plan, different payment plans, okay, a 60-40, 80-20, 70-30, sometimes a post-turnover payment plan, sometimes a 50-50 plan. Let's compare the payment plans to actually a property in the secondary market where you need to buy everything upfront in one transaction, no payment plan. And then let's compare it to mortgage, for example. If you're a UAE resident, chances are high that you can get a good mortgage, but depends on different factors. And obviously you have to have the interest rates in mind. And those are the three things you need to compare. So payment plans, comparing to the upfront payment in the secondary markets, comparing to mortgage, get yourself a good financial liquidity. Number two, your strategy or the purpose of your purchase. Now, what do you mean with that? Investor is something different compared to the end user. Although the end user, for you, if you buy yourself a dream home, of course you want to get a good deal, and of course you want to have an appreciation as well, but the investor looks at different things. The investor always looks at numbers, KPIs, facts, figures, where you would like to buy a property as the end user, where you feel comfortable and where you want to stay at home, right? So that's the core difference here. Now, please have that in mind when it comes to your strategy. And please pinpoint all the relevant factors we have talked right now in this particular video. Go back to look at another video where I do the exact same thing with the secondary market, the ready property, and then you have a very good final conclusion for yourself, what you want, and that even like eliminates multiple problems and issues and challenges and makes it very easy for you and for me together to find the perfect property or properties and be successful on this market. To sum up the video, I would like to give you two practical examples, one for the investor again and one for the end user, on how we actually do the whole process and what are the steps whenever you're reaching out to me. Now, let's say we sit down together, investor, okay, and you would like to build yourself a portfolio. Now, what are the steps we're doing? Like generally and briefly explain from my side. I do that way more deeper in another video, but right now, let's keep it very superficial. In the first place, we just define what is your exit strategy. Like what would you like to gain in terms of profits, right? Like what is necessary for you to achieve your goal? As I already said, capital appreciation. Would you like to do it short-term in a resale? Would you like to keep it long-term and renting out? Those are all important questions we need to ask, and we need to define, first of all, what's the strategy and what is the outcome, what is the set goal. Now, after we did that, we then look at different communities, we look at different areas in order to compare those communities, those areas, those locations in form of appreciation potential. That means what will be built there over the next couple of years in terms of like buildings around, in terms of like some tourism stuff, in terms of is this a waterfront property, is this like a master community within like an area in Dubai. What are actually like the most profitable communities and areas and locations to place the investment, right? And after that, you can see already we are moving like from the macro strategy, or from the macro perspective to the micro perspective. After that, we're moving into the property itself. So we then defining what's the property type. Is it like a penthouse or is it a studio? There's a huge difference between, right? Not only in size, but in property type and in people living in there and in occupancy rate and so on. All those things we need to have a look on. The next thing is once we defined the first three parts, we are comparing developers. We're looking at developer A, B, C, D, for example, okay, 3 to 4 different developers, where I know exactly they kind of have those stock and those launches plans where we can fulfill those needs. And after we did that, we visited the developer's office and we compared different projects. So we pinpoint and stick to 3 projects, for example, from 3 different developers, and then we start comparing, okay? And the main job and the most work is on my side. So please don't get confused here or don't think it's like an enormous amount of work. It is not, because this is my job with my team together to break down every single little detail for you to make the perfect choice. And that allows you actually to pick the property which we defined together based on your goals and based on what is necessary for me to know. Whereas the investor looks more in numbers, facts, and figures, you are talking about a dream home and you would like to feel comfortable in it, right? So in the first place, we look more on the community itself, like the master plan of the community, the master plan of the area of the location you want to live in. Is there already a plan there for a school, for a hospital, for all the amenities and facilities around in that community that are necessary for you? Do you already feel comfortable when you're now entering this particular community? Are there similar communities around? What's the accessibility like? What are the roads? What are the highways to this particular community? That's what we need to focus in the first place, and then we go one step deeper and then we define the property type. 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, less, more. That is the next thing. After we did that, now we are comparing the different developers again. Now we are looking at developer A, B, C, for example, comparing different projects. And now that I know exactly what kind of property you're looking for and where you're looking for, that eliminates like 95% of everything which is on the market, and we stick down to the 5% which come into my mind and which are realistic, right? So in terms of efficiency, that's what we do here. And after we do that, then we're sticking to one particular project, and then we're looking at the developer's showroom apartments. We're actually walking into the showroom, we're looking at the materials, we're looking at every single little detail, we're getting a feeling for the design, we're getting a feeling for the property itself. Even though it's only like a showroom apartment, it is very, very like identical to the reality what the developer is promising us. And the final step is the decision. But before, in some cases, we can make the decision. What we can do is actually viewing a real property on the secondary market, which is already handed over. We can do that if it's exactly from the same developer, and if it's exactly like the same layout or a very identical layout, that it makes sense to view that particular property. Just that you can get a feeling of the DNA of the developer, what they're trying to do, what's their mindset, and what are they aiming for, okay? So those are the things that we do in case that you would like to purchase a property in the off-plan stage for you as a dream home in order to make a final decisions. Those are the steps as I already explained. Super, and we've come to an end of this particular video. I hope it's now very clear all the advantages, some disadvantages of the off-plan. For who is it for? What's the strategy behind it? What are we gonna do together? This was actually my goal in order to make it for you very simple, very clear, with one simple video, with one single video, to understand exactly what's the process and to raise the trust and the security levels for you. And now it's time to take action. Now I want you to click on the link below this particular video and reach out to me. Like, fill out the forms and give me some upfront information in order for me to prepare what you're looking for. And I think I made it with this particular video very easy and simple for you to clarify which direction you want to go. And now it's time for you, as I already said, reach out to me, click the link below, and I'll see you on the other side. See you in Dubai.